So welcome everybody to the November 9th ASD Presents meeting. And this evening we have the pleasure of Atala Toy speaking with us about dowsing to talk with nature spirit. She's a nature being photographer. And in fact, she's an interdimensional communicator and photographer, and she specializes in photographing beings as they present themselves in trees and rocks, relaying their stories to human beings. Atala is the author of 3 books on interdimensional communication, and I think she said she's working on another one. Has a website dedicated to nature beings, atalatoy.com, and vlogs regularly on this topic. She is a former vice president of the American Society of Dowsers. Atala, take it away. Oh, and also, sorry, housekeeping thing. If everybody could stay muted when you're not talking, that would be great. If you can't find your mute button, I will find it and mute you, but that might mean it's hard for you to talk later. So raise your hand or something if you want to talk and you can't figure out how to be heard, and take it away.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. So I am going to come in and let's see. Here we go. Let's make sure I can move through this. Good. Okay. So thank you very much, Sandy and Mark and everyone of the Dowsers for inviting me to your monthly meeting, your get together. And I wanted to take you into a world that I partly got started on through dowsing. That's one of the main one avenue that I took in order to communicate with nature spirits. And I wanted to show you folks a bit about how it's done from how I do it, and see if there's anything that might be of interest to you. Yeah. So the title of the talk is Dowsing to Talk with Nature Spirits. I'm a nature beings photographer. I used to call them nature spirits, but I'm now more calling them nature beings because they're real people. They're like, we have human beings and we have nature beings. They're not, the only reason we call them spirits is that they look ephemeral from our point of view. But if you were in their world, we are the ones, we would be human spirits because we look shimmery to them from their perspective.
Interesting.
And this is for the American Society of Dowsers, and below is my.
In a deposition, we may all ask you some questions, okay? Now, Grant knew that to walk with fine woman.
Could you
Be
please?
delicate enough with a 12-year-old not to traumatize, but
Okay,
up to
Mark, can you?
I saw Angel there, and my
Mute
heart.
everyone.
Why don't you just mute everybody?
He's saying these things
Yeah,
I
just
know.
mute everyone. Okay, can you hear me? Yes. All right, if anybody wants to speak, please raise their hand and we'll speak. So the type of dowsing that's used for communicating with nature spirits, it's frequencies. So there are many, as most of you know, there are many different kinds of dowsing: dowsing for water, dowsing for treasure, dowsing for things that are lost. If you're dowsing to communicate with life forms in another dimension, then you're doing frequency dowsing. You're locating where that life form is, and they all are in different places in universal consciousness. When you're looking to start communicating with these beings, there's a progression. And first, the beginning progression is the pendulum. Now, if you're doing map dowsing or you're doing dowsing for oil, dowsing for water, you might stay with the pendulum and the rods because that's very good testing. But as you're doing interdimensional communication, you're moving about through fields to different beings, so you move slowly into body dowsing. Now, I think most of you know that when you're using the pendulum, you can actually feel it. You know that we're all taught in dowsing that you're bringing universal spirit down through you, down through the soft motors, muscles of your hand and into the pendulum, which is registering. So when you're doing body dowsing, you're internalizing this, and you're putting aside the pendulum or the rods, and you're using your body. Now, for the kind of work to connect to the nature spirits and ETs and beings of other realms, you can't really sit there with a pendulum and, you know, douse all the time. It has to become more intuitive. So as you're moving into this kind of work, you're moving through body dowsing into direct communication, where you're just like talking to a friend, but that friend's in another dimension. All right, let's see. So, and why do we want to even connect to these beings of other realms? Well, there's respect for all beings. There's help with common issues of earth health, and it's getting to know your neighbors. The nature spirits, nature beings, and human beings, we live on the same earth. And what separates us is frequency. And there are many explanations for that, depending upon your tradition going back past written history, back eons and eons. But at this point, the dimensions are beginning to blend as we move up in consciousness.
Everything seemed to have dried very well today.
Can you, Mark, is somebody talking? Can you get them muted? Thank you. So you're getting to know your neighbors in these other dimensions, and we're going to need that because we need help to bring about the health of Earth. So that's a pragmatic way. So what I want to show you folks today and discuss with you are situations I have encountered myself. So this is very pragmatic. I'm not giving you a hierarchical explanation of, you know, this is how it works in the nature realms. These are places that I have encountered nature beings. I've taken their photos, and I've been doing this since 2003. So over that time, I've accumulated thousands and thousands of photos, and they fit into certain categories. And so this is what I've discovered, and if it's of use to you, I hope it is. There's something you can do. So the way it came about was that I had an agreement with the realm to photograph what they show me. I first got used to this when I was up in New Hampshire, my family's home state, and a gnome took me out to photograph a moss fairy. And it was so amazing to me that these beings existed, which I did not know before this occurred. And I really got intrigued by it, and they were interested in having me show other people, show humans that they existed. So we came to an agreement, and that was that when I went into a place, I would ask permission to photograph from the deva of the area, and then I would go wherever they asked me to go in that realm and stop and take a photo where they would ask me to stop. Now, when I first started out, I didn't even know that sometimes I would just take a picture of a tree because they told me to, and it wasn't until I got home and put it into a computer that I could see what was there. And that's because humans have a vital that the nature beings don't have as strong as we do. So when you're using a camera, the camera is recording what's there and something that we may not be able to see. But when you put it on the computer, which also does not have a strong vital, then you're able to see things that are hidden from us. So here, now I'm used to it. Been doing it for 20 years and I can see a lot of things, but I'm still finding items. So when you're doing this work, I think it's very important to use a camera. I recommend it to you all. So here's a green man. I'm living in Pennsylvania now, and he asked me to photograph him. He was also in a tree, but here he sculpted himself into a whole environment with his hair, his eyes, his nose, his goatee. In this area, they love goatees and they love long hair on the men. And here's his shoulder going down. So I take a photo. I ask what they're showing me. And each time it could be something different. And what happens is these beings are in another realm. And it's when they really, really care about something intensely and they enough to manifest it in a tree or a rock. And that can be seen in our dimension as well as in their dimension. And this is a segue between the two worlds. So a lot of people cannot see this because when you see it, they just say, oh, it's my imagination, or they're just seeing bark. So I'm trying to show people that when you focus on it and you just adjust the contrast a bit in the photograph, that you can see these beings are real, that these are life forms that we need to work with for the better of Earth. And then once I'm doused and I connect with this being, then I listen to what they say. And it's like for many years, I've also taught meditation. And I always tell people meditation and prayer go together. Prayer, you're asking, and meditation, you're listening. And it's the same way with the nature spirits. You're going in and you're putting a call out. What are you? What am I seeing? And then you need to listen as they answer. And when they are answering back, you're adjusting your frequency so that you can jive with theirs and understand. So that's a type of body dowsing that can be done. So I wanted to show you some of the different ways that I have recorded life forms as they are working with trees and rocks. Now there is the life force energy of the tree or rock itself. And that's when they manifest who they are, what they represent, what their energy is. And I can take a photograph. So this is Grandfather Rock here. He's up in Estes Park. He's one of the very first rock beings I became friends with. And you can see, I would sit here when I go visit and just meditate. He took me into his inner realm, his world inside. These are all gateways into their world, and you can go in through this rock or tree into another whole dimension if you just identify and move in. So he introduced me to his family that are strewn down this hillside. Now over here,
as people ask questions in the chat, do you want me to ask them of you or kind of wait?
Sure. If it's pertinent to what I'm talking about, sure, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so Dowser Terry is curious about whether it makes a difference if you ask the nature beings questions silently or aloud.
Well, if you're saying it aloud, then you're anchoring yourself in this dimension. If you are communicating with the being, you're actually going in through the spiritual heart. I go in through the spiritual heart. because that's the highest level of communication, takes you back to source. And then in there, that's like a universal translator, the heart is. So when you go in there, you can move in to where this other life form is, and you're communicating through the heart across dimensions and across languages to be understood. If you're saying it outwardly, that life form may not be able to move from his dimension back out to our physical one. So that really isn't of much use to you, I would say. Anything else, Mark?
Yeah. Keep
Okay.
going.
All right. So on the right, this is a life form out of a local preserve. And he has this sweet little face that's a little scared and perturbed because he's at the end of his life, and everything is closing down for him, but he's very sweet. And then up here are some other life forms. Once a tree starts learning to create an image, they usually don't stop. They create other images. It's like us. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're sad, sometimes we want to look at listen to jazz, sometimes we want to listen to rock and roll. And trees are like that, but they only have their trunk and their as their canvas. So they will start manifesting different aspects of themselves. So love exists in the nature spirit realms. Love is universal, it's everywhere. And there are many stories of love between the beings of the nature realms. And they have shown me quite a number of them, a number of tableaus. And I didn't put them all here, but if you go into my website, which is just devoted to photos of nature beings and stories about them, you can see some of these stories. Here, this is a story of the love of a balsam and a birch. And this is up in the National Forest up in New Hampshire next to my family property. And I was walking through here, and I heard two voices, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. I'm going, who the heck in the middle of a forest is saying that? And it doesn't seem to be coming from around here. So I hunted around, and I came finally upon this. It's a birch tree and a balsam, and they're kissing. They love each other. And this was a story that later, if you come around another angle, you see that they're pulling apart because the birch tree is dying. This is, I think, the next year. And so the balsam is reaching out. And here, the birch tree is falling down. This is several years more, and the balsam is still reaching out. Now, when I heard this, the deva of that area came to me and was surprised that I could hear this. I was studying it, and she took me around and showed me a number of other places where she put a balsam, which is gentle and soft, but has a hard time in northern New England in the winters, and the balsam, which is very stern and strong. And she was pairing them together for the opposites to the softness and the strength. And on my website, I have some more photos of that, of other situations that she had. So this is a case where you're dowsing, you're adjusting your frequencies, you're coming into relation to this story, and then it starts opening up into another world and another whole set of circumstances and stories that abound. The nature realms, I know a lot of us like to take photos of hearts that appear in nature, and very often hearts will come if I'm in need of a bit of love, or I'm feeling very benign out there, the hearts will present themselves. So here's one in a tree. Here's one that's in Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And I really like this because the children love to climb on this rock. I don't think any of them ever noticed this heart. And if you notice inside the heart, there's actually a cougar, a cat-like. There's a number of mountain lions images in this park. And how many people ever see that, you know, but there it is. And then over here, this is that was a lichen that at Estes Park, when I knew I wouldn't be going back anymore to see my stone friends, I looked down and they had presented me with this little lichen stone as to show they love their love for me. So another way that you can understand interdimensional communication is understanding that these trees are address markers. And in dowsing, we know that there are ley lines, grids, vortexes, all kinds of earth energies that are coming up. Well, the nature beings often will work with those vortexes, and they also work with the grid. They are part of the grid. So they will often here's a wood elf up in New Hampshire, and you can see his hat and his face and his cloak. And if you look at him one way, he's young. And if you look at him another way, with the eye here, he's older. And this is the marker for a wood elf who's in charge of that area. Now, an address marker goes out in a grid, and you know, things go out in circles, right, in nature. And if anything happens anywhere in his field, he is immediately aware of it, and his energy can go there right away and deal with the situation. So this is like his antenna or his mark, his main place. There are other beings, green men. I'm very fond of green men because they're the philosophers and the teachers, and they will often, when I go someplace, appear and teach me about that area. So this is a green man from Geneva, Illinois, where I used to live, and he was in a black walnut tree. And you can see his eye and his nose and his mouth. Now, the green men, if you look at the Celtic plaques, have leaves going back. And this is what the Druids and the pagans could see, the green men have. And if you look here, you can see this image of he calls it a facial armor. And when it's at rest, it lies back. And then when he wants to impress someone, like a lady, green person, or just in communication, it comes out, which is what you see in the plaques. And then he explained that if he goes into battle, it comes forward like armor and it locks around the face. So the images that we see over time have a purpose. Another type of life form that you're going to see when you're out are the entry and the guardian trees and rocks. So usually it's kind of like crows. When you go into an area, there are crows on guard, and they're going to call and they're going to alert their whole family that something's coming into their territory, and, you know, be alert. And it's the same thing with trees, the guardian trees. So this is at the start of a walk at Morton Arboretum, and this tree here and is the entry tree. And at the base, there is this wolf, a wolf man. And you can see his ear and his eye and his nose. And he is the guardian energy for that area. So when people walk along there, he alerts the the nature beings in the area that humans are coming through, or it could be something from their realm is coming through, and to be on alert. So I've taken many photos of this. Then another type of a situation are guardians of portals. And anytime that you see these situations, it's either created by them, or there's a situation that's occurred in nature, and the beings are coming around for protection. So this is two different types of situations. This one on the left is actually at Longwood Gardens. It's one of the last remaining elm trees in the garden. There used to be a long line of them, and they all had the Dutch elm disease. So they really coddle this tree and do everything they can to help it. And then you'll see there's actually a Indian visage here with the eye, and then there's a elm tree spirit that I've seen in a number of places around here, and another being over here, and then a bird down here. So all of these are nature energies that are assembling to help strengthen this tree and to protect from anybody entering into that elm area, elm world, that doesn't belong there. Over on this, at a local preserve, this is a bird with a bird angel above. And so you can see the bird down here. And up here, there's the angel wings and a bird head and the portal right in here. So they explained to me that this is where when birds die in this area, that's like a portal into spirit for them. And it's a protection. So you're not going to see a genuine portal as versus, a cut limb. A portal is always going to have a being who's in charge of that portal and guards it so that nobody can get through unless they have a reason. And it's kind of like those of you who've seen the Marvel comics, the Asgard, with the Guardians of the Gates in Asgard, and the various guardians of any of the gates in the fairy tales. It's the same concept. That's a real position, is the guardian of the gate. And then close to the heart of all dowsers are working with vortexes and nodal points. And nodal point, one thing I've learned from working with the nature spirits is that there are grids that circle the earth that contain specific frequencies that and energies that are of use. And the way I explain it to people is that it's like the Christ consciousness circles the globe. It's so strong that it circles the whole globe, and it has anchor points like a church or maybe a saint, but different places that anchor that energy down into the earth so that people can access it. And the same thing holds with energies like lion energy or elephant energy. That's an energy that people will often tap into for courage for themselves, and that's a grid. So one of the key grids is the ape grid. This here, this is in Central Park, and that's a template for many humans. And I really like this. I call this Planet of the Apes, because here's the ape. Down here is this dumb human. Over here is a nature spirit, and over here is another nature spirit. So that's a guardian, a wood elf, and then another being here. So this is holding down in Central Park in New York, the energies are very, very, very strong, the nature spirits, because they have so many people to care for. And this is one of a prominent location there. Now, on an intergalactic level, there is the Mayan grid, and that's one of the intergalactic races that helped with the formation of one aspect of human energy. And I seem to have a connection to that energy, and I've come across these images at different places. They often, for some reason, have a tall hat. I haven't figured out why, some of them. So this is a tall being. This is up in Acadia. And down here, if you can see, and again, that's a story on my website, and you can see a large picture of it. There is a head of a person and his body on an altar for the sacrificial offering that the Mayans engaged in. So that is holding the Mayan grid around the world at that point in far off Acadia. Now, I recently moved to Pennsylvania from Chicago. And the community where I'm living in, it's a Quaker community, Quaker oriented, and settled by Quakers back when in the 1680s when William Penn came here. And it's a very peaceful area, except for one time, which was the Battle of the Brandywine during the Revolutionary War, when thousands of British and Americans lost their lives. And this is when I learned that when there are disturbances, really major disturbances, they sink down into the earth grid, into the earth itself. It locks in down there. And one of the things that some people do, and we really need to pay attention to, is clearing the grid to restore it. And totally unaware, but I came upon it so many times, I finally listened to them and understood. The nature spirits work very hard to reestablish balance in nature. And they do that here at this particular place. This tree was not as old as the battle, but the battle took place in this area, this specific area. And they created, this is a British Cavalier officer, and you can see his hat, his eye, his nose, his mustache, his mouth, and his headpiece with his pom-pom. And over here, now you have to keep shifting because this is one trunk and it has a lot of energies it's working with. So over here, there is a kind of like the British sergeant, that takes care of the ordinary men with the eye and the mustache and the beard. And then right in here, it shows a hooded wood elf, which is one of the warriors of the nature realm. And he is in this area. And then if you go around the other side of this tree, there are more images. So they explained to me that what they're doing is they're holding that energy of the aggressor, of the people coming in, nice people, but the aggressors, and seeking to harmonize this and bring everything back into a state of peace. And we find this throughout that area, and over maybe a mile away, here's a Hessian in an old tree, and there's a little life form here, a Hessian with a large headpiece, his eye, his nose, and his helmet, and his chin. And then over on this side, you can see here, there's an Indian with the feathered headdress, and both of them are surrounding this baby. So the baby is they said was the colonials that were trying to get started at that time, and these were other energies that were coming in, countering them. Then there's something called a council tree, and these are courthouses for the nature realms. I've encountered a few of these. And they explain that nature beings can bring, when nature beings, they have their arguments just like we have. And if there's an argument there, the beings have a right to bring that argument to the courthouse, to that council tree. And then there they have beings of many different realms who deliver a decision, and that's considered binding and valid for everyone. So in this tree, this is an old tree that was in the yard of one of the pioneering founders of this small little town in New Hampshire, in Conway. And you see here, this is the presiding judge. It's a wood elf with the eye and the mouth. He's a prince. Down here, there's one representing the Native Americans. That's the Abenaki area. And you can see this energy here. There's an ape here, a monkey for that template. Over here, this is a merchant level wood elf with a hat and an eye, nose, mouth. And then there are more that go around here. So these are images of the energies that are presiding at that council tree. It's like photos of judges around a courtroom. And they sit in judgment for that area. Then there are at the very top, there's a hierarchy in the nature realms with the devas at the top overseeing the tree fairies and the plant fairies. And then there are beings in the nature realm that are independent of that hierarchy, just like in our society. And that's like the green men and the wood elves and the gnomes and the leprechauns. So, but the devas are in chart, have a lot of life forms under them that take care of nature. And so here's a lady of the forest. She explained to me that she is a lady of the forest. She has a heart-shaped face. She has a hat and a shawl, a veil coming down. And here's a baby bird that she's birthing forth. And the ladies and one eye is in this world and one eye is consciously empty, vacant. And that means that she's a messenger between spirit and matter. And this is something the Native Americans, actually, Keith Schaefer taught me this from his traditions, that in nature, that when the Native Americans see that, they know it's a messenger between spirit and matter. And her job is to arbitrate and oversee the life forms in her area and to keep the order in their comings and their goings. Over here on the stone area, this is a Bear Lake in Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Forest. And here's the Deva of Bear Lake. And you can see that with the eye and the nose and the mouth coming down here. And she oversees all of this land. And then finally, I want to show you this one, and then we're going to take questions. Then I'm going to lead you in a little exercise and in connecting here. One of the things that impresses me are the artists of the nature realm. And again, as I've said, on my website, you'll see a lot of these huge monuments there is no way that this could be a trick of the light or anything. This is in the Garden of the Gods in Colorado. And this is a huge mural of the Indians and animals being protected by the ant people at the one of the changes of the ages in the past, when Earth was inhospitable, and the legend goes that the ant people took the Indians and the animals into the inner Earth until they could come out again. So in the summer, the Utes now live around that area, and they will come for a week of festivities, and they actually come around and they do ceremonies here. And this has an eye here, and down when it rains, there's actually rain that comes down and a teardrop right here. So this is a demonstration of the way that artists in the nature spirit realm, nature beings realm, work with matter. They don't do it the way we do. We carve and we cut things away. They actually manipulate physical matter, and so it looks like it's just natural stone, but it's been carved. And in the pine trees, especially in New England, if you go out and you look at them, the beings who work with pine trees, it's like they have a putty knife, and they actually go down and they'll incise an outline of an image on the trunk, on their trunks. So that is the area that takes you through some of the situations that I've encountered that demonstrates that these are real beings, and the way that you can connect to them is through dowsing that progresses through pendulum to body dowsing to internal communication. At this point, Mark, if there are any questions, I'll take them, and then I'm going to take you in an exercise to identify with these beings.
Okay, well, we've got two so far. So the first is from Deb, and she's asking, when trees have large burls, what are the nature beings trying to tell us? Some trees have many burls and others none.
Right. So if you listen to an arborist, they're going to say that it's an insect, right? Insect infection. The burl, different trees have different ways that they work with energy to express themselves, or that beings will work with them. So some, like oak trees, and they grow a burl, and if you actually look at it, you can see faces in them, like you saw in the very beginning. Others, like pine trees, they incise it, and others will just use the bark and bring forth an image. So it's just the way that particular tree works with matter.
Thank you. Another question from Gail West. She wants to know, do you have connection with the dragon realm?
With the dragon realm, I do. Why? Because I know she reads Akashic records, so that's
Gail, maybe you want to unmute yourself and say a little bit more.
So I work with the dragon realm, and so I'm just curious. You haven't really mentioned the dragon realm at all. I'm curious about your connection with the dragon realm.
Sure. All right. Well, the dragon realm, yeah, because I have like 85,000 photos in my collection, of which, like maybe 10,000 to 1,000. So I can't present everything here. The dragon realm, as I work with the Gail, and we all work differently, represents the strong earth energies that are very difficult to control. But if you master the dragon energies, then you really can move into the deep energy movements of the earth. I've photographed a number of dragon energies. And I've also, out here where I'm living now, it's a very, very gentle area, and they have baby dragons here, and they look more like How to Train Your Dragon. I have some wonderful photos of little baby dragons and these little gnomes that work with the dragon. So the dragon energy has many types of beings. And does that give you any answers, or is there something more you want to? I will say that, Gail, you work with money, and you've written a book on that. And I am one of the people who don't really understand money. But when I was over in Nepal many years ago, over in Bali, and I went to a temple, and I had started my company, and I didn't understand money. So I prayed that they would help me to understand money. And a couple of days later, this dragon came to me in my dreams, and it came up and right in my face, and I just freaked out. And this happened 3 nights in a row. And finally it came and it stood there and said, you were asking us about money. I'm here to teach you that, and you keep sending me away. So for me, it was, that was the money energy trying to explain. And money did take good care of me. I still don't understand it, but I did okay. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's 2 more questions so far. I'm going to ask the most current one because it's a little bit relevant to what you just said. So Laura Hillier wants to know, when do you hear or know from the nature beings? Is it when you're present in the locale, or later when you're viewing the computer images?
Oh, that is such a wonderful question. Thank you so much for asking that. When you start doing this work, we all have an affinity for certain energies, like they talk about your totem. What's your animal totem? What's your, so you have an affinity. Like mine is bear. So I always will see the bear first. So when I go someplace, and when I first did this, I go and I'd stand there and I'd go like, what? You guys wanted me to stand here? I don't see anything. And they'd say, take a photo, just take a photo. And I take it back on the computer. And there, where I'm not having all this emotional energy, I could see the image. Now I've gotten to the point where when they say there's an image there, I will sit there, I will stand in front, and I've learned to shift. It's kind of like you're just shifting your energy, like when you're trying to help a child who's crying, or, and you're trying to find where the issue is. And then when I find it, I can lock in and I will see one image. I have learned over time that if there is one image, there's going to probably be other images. And in order to find those, I'm going to have to shift my frequency again, because the tree is expressing its personality, a different aspect of its personality. So, maybe one is gentle and one is strong. So I will shift and I will see another image. And when I take people out on a nature walk, very often, people will look at a tree and they will see different things. Different people in the group will see images in the tree, but they're different places because of their proclivity for energy. But the camera, my belief, my own personal belief, is that everything in this universe is alive and contains source, including manufactured items. So my camera, my Nikon D850 is my best friend. And when we go out, I'm asking that camera to please record what it sees, even if I might not see it. And it takes a picture of what's there. When I bring it back and I put it on my computer with my beloved Adobe Photoshop, and I bring that up and I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh my goodness, I didn't see this. And then I will sit there, and it's almost like a meditation where I'm broadening my own ability to connect to the nature realms by studying that image and seeing what's there that I didn't see from my human perspective. So part of my personal growth has been studying the photos I take. And I tell people, you can look at this photo that's on the screen right now and connect into that energy, and it's honest and valid, and you will learn more about how to communicate with nature spirits. So, okay.
Thank you. From the same person, a kind of a follow-up. When do you know the personality or role or function? So for example, with the council tree, when did the council tree tell you about his responsibilities?
Okay, when I go in, and I recommend this to everybody, when I'm going out with my camera to take photos, I always stop at the start of the place and I salute the Deva, the reigning spirit of that place. And I let them see that I come in ahimsa, non-harm, that I have a purpose, which is to take a photo and let humans know that they are real. And if there's any being who wants their photo taken, let me know and I will take it. Now, it's like people. Some people want you to know exactly what they do, and others are shy. But the council tree, it was important for them to explain who they were and why there were so many, because I was looking at them like going like, what's happening here? There's all these different figures. And when they hear from their world that you have a query and they're feeling particularly benign that day, they explained to me what it was, especially because that happens to be a tree that I've admired since I was a child. And I finally got the courage to go in the person's yard and look at it, and they appreciated that and told me.
Thank you. You're getting a number of thank yous and appreciations, by the way. And one question I didn't ask yet from Gloria Baker, which is she's wondering if a tree is cut down, do the nature spirits stay with it or do they move on?
Very good question. I've had people call me freaking out because somebody across the street is cutting down all the huge oaks without telling anybody. I always tell people, if you know that somebody is coming in and going to be cutting down a lot of trees, or even a tree in your own yard, please go out and from your spirit, convey to the nature spirits that what's going to happen, so that they can get the beings that can move out of the way, and the beings who are associated with the tree and can't move, time to put their matters in order, and for this to occur. And related to that is when people, they strip everything down, they build houses, and then they call me because there are problems with their situation. And I come in and I find all the nature spirits who can move or over, in a refugee camp that they need to be gotten out. And the rest it's like dead because they're dead. They've just killed. It's like a war field until things can recover. So you're going to find the two things. You're going to find that being who's died, and you're going to find the beings who could move. And there's another situation where when it's down, that tree, if it falls naturally, it may not be dead yet, or if it's standing, it might be physically dead, but its spirit might be there, especially if it's a nodal tree. And other beings will move into that tree to make use of it. So it's being occupied, but not by the original energy.
Okay. So I guess we're close to the top of the hour. I don't see more questions right now. Maybe it would make sense to for that exercise, and then if there are any questions, we can do that afterwards.
Okay, and we're going to hold to pretty much an hour. Is that our
I
idea?
can be a little bit more.
Okay. All right, so let's go in and let's connect to the devas. So I'm giving you an option of two, either a tree or a rock, depending upon your proclivity. So now, the first thing, of course, when you're connecting in, if you have a pendulum, you could pull this out and you could dowse for the frequency of this being. And when you're getting used to it, you could take any of my photos from, just look at them on the website, and use a pendulum and ask what the frequency is of this being. So we're going to do it using either your pendulum, or if you can body dowse. Internally, I want you to find where on the circle, the wood circle, where that frequency is, and just let it go back and forth and identify with this being until you come into resonance with it, and then communicate. Now your communication could be either a feeling, a sound, a color. It depends upon your strength where it's going to be. So we're going to just take 2 minutes and find the frequency and move into resonance with these. Okay, come on back out. And if there's anybody who would like to make a comment of what they experienced, could you raise your hand or unmute yourself and make a comment, or Mark will let you speak.
I'm not seeing any volunteers yet.
All right.
I can always tell you what I got, but I'm curious
Okay.
to see what other people got.
Sure. Why don't you start with you?
Okay. So when I dowsed on the tree, that kind of lower figure, the part of it that seemed to have the energy that wanted to communicate with me was the spot where the other eye would have been. It's kind of blank.
Mm-hmm.
And when I connected with it, I noticed there was a part of me that really wanted it to say something, and I had to relax. And once I did that, then I got this feeling, and I don't know how much of this feeling is the communication or what I was making up, but it felt like a sense of the grandeur of these beings, and that they have a great deal of power, but there's something that we're not doing that's causing that power to be squandered. And so it was just kind of a both and, like how much energy there is, but also that there's a kind of a certain amount of wasting.
Certain amount of what?
Wasting.
Wasting.
Yeah. That we're we're not doing the things that nature would prefer us to do.
Wow, that is so right on, Mark, because if you can go into that lady's energy and you move into her world, which is like this vast world of spirit where she's doing so much with all of these beings, and she's very active. And then she comes here into the physical world where she's constrained by everything that humans are doing detrimentally in that atmosphere. So that was just spot on. That was really wonderful. Thank you for sharing. How about anybody else? Somebody else want to speak up?
So you can just unmute yourself or raise your hand if you can unmute yourself. And if you're lucky, I'll be able to unmute you. Okay, Sharon Rothman, go for it.
Hi. My experience was actually quite surprising, in that this being told me that I was a sister. She was my sister being, and I identified with her right away, but I didn't have time to take it further. So, but I will. I'm looking forward to it.
That's wonderful. That means that that your energy was, and the work that you're doing would be very compatible with this realm, and it would be, you could expand on your work by identifying with it. And you're welcome again to go into my website and find that image and just meditate on it. And if you need to connect, or you could have already made the connection, you can just sit and do that, or go out and find your own.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, I will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there's a couple of comments. So Sandy Isgro said that I got this from the Rock Deva. Peace, ancient ones, all is as it should be. That's in quotes. And then Carolyn D said the rock being told me has been there for 100,000 years. And Susie Morton said that she connected with the tree in a very sweet way, but she didn't get any clear messages, at least not yet.
Oh, very good. All right. Well, I hope others who haven't spoken up, also connected and go out now and go into your backyard tomorrow and find a tree or rock that you feel comfortable with and go sit with it and see what the message is that it has for you. So I appreciate so much speaking with everybody, and I do sincerely hope this has been of some service and help you connect and do the good work that the dowsers do to help with the land and help with the energy of Earth. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. Thank you, Atala. It was a wonderful talk. People are saying it's the best presentation they ever experienced. It's definitely up there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think for me, part of what made this so lovely was, you gave us a gift that opens up a world that's around us, and it opens it up in a way that I didn't realize was present. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
So let's see, I'm going to stop the recording. Oh no, I won't do that quite yet. So just so that everybody knows, the next talk up, I think, is on the 22nd of November, and that's Joey Korn. That was postponed from another date. I think a lot of you know Joey. He's a master dowser, and he has interesting things to share. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing is, if any of you know of speakers that you've heard and you think other people would like to hear them, or there's somebody that you haven't heard but you've heard of and you'd like to hear them in a format like this, please let the ASD know. And how you would do that is by emailing, I guess, where's my notes? I can't find that. But anyway, if you email at the Dowsing Society, we will get that information and we'll find out. Sandy, do you have anybody in particular you wanted to send that to? Ms. White Wolf, Sandy Iskro? All right, we'll figure it out. And in the meantime, Atala, Susie is asking if you have an email list.
Well, I do have a Facebook group that you can go to. It's a private so you can share your own photos.
Why don't you put your last slide up again, because that has that information.
Yes, thank you. Here we go. Here are the ways that you can reach me. Here's my blog, a Facebook group. I'm on Instagram, and if you want to email me, you can email here. I do have a newsletter that comes out infrequently, but these other ways are ways that you could reach me.
Okay. And Sandy, you unmuted yourself. So where should people send speaker
I
suggestions?
was just going to say you can reach, send your recommendations or your ideas to Lisa@dowsers.org. She's our office manager, and she'll get
Okay.
it to me.
All right. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Atala. It was absolutely fantastic. And look forward to being with the trees even more now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye,
Great.
everyone.
All right. Bye.
Too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
the block?
All I could see